You don't need more time. You don't need more books. You don't need more podcasts or more motivational clips or more journals full of ideas you never execute. What you need is to move, because the world doesn't change for the person who learns the most. It changes for the one who acts on what they've learned. You've read the quotes. You've heard the speeches. You've written your goals. But until you act, you are only accumulating potential energy. And potential energy never built anything. It never changed the world. It never shifted your bank account, your body, your identity, or your legacy. Only kinetic energy does that. Only movement. So let this hit you like truth in a quiet room. Learning is not growth. Learning is the seed. Action is what makes it bloom. And most people, they've got libraries of wisdom with no fruit on their tree. Not because they're lazy, but because they confused consumption with transformation. They believed that understanding a concept meant they had mastered it. But you don't master what you've learned. You master what you practice. Reading about strength doesn't make you strong. Studying courage doesn't make you brave. Understanding business doesn't make you wealthy. Only doing the work does that. So, stop waiting to feel ready. Stop thinking that the next piece of information is what you're missing. It's not. What you're missing is movement. Because at some point, you have to ask yourself, am I studying because I'm committed to mastery? Or am I studying because I'm scared to move? There's a fine line between preparation and procrastination. And most people hide behind learning because action demands exposure. It demands you risk being seen. It demands you risk being bad at something before you're great at it. It demands that you trade certainty for momentum. And yes, it's uncomfortable. But comfort is not where greatness lives. It's where potential goes to die. So no, you don't need to know more. You need to do more with what you know. You need to turn your morning routine into non-negotiables. You need to turn your vision board into a schedule. You need to turn your passion into a practice. Because information is only power when it leads to transformation. And transformation doesn't begin with what you learn. It begins with what you do next. And what you do next should come from a mindset that's been rebuilt. Because mindset isn't something you recite. It's something you live. It's the inner command center that turns belief into behavior. It's what allows you to get punched in the mouth by failure and still whisper, we're not done. And your mindset, it doesn't get stronger through lectures. It gets stronger through reps, through exposure, through choosing consistency over comfort. Because mindset without discipline is just hope in disguise. And hope is not a strategy. You need discipline. You need the spine to execute without applause. You need the will to take that book you highlighted and make it a part of your daily identity. Discipline isn't about doing what feels good. It's about doing what's aligned. And alignment, that only happens when your actions echo your values. Not when you say you want success, but when your schedule proves it. Not when you plan to write, to train, to build, but when you show up anyway. Tired, uncertain, uncomfortable. That's how habits are rewired. That's how lives are redesigned. That's how ideas become impact. So let this moment draw a line in the sand between who you were when you only consumed and who you are now that you produce. You are not a collector of concepts. You are a creator of momentum. Because belief without behavior is fiction, and vision without execution is just a hallucination. You say you believe in yourself, then prove it. Not to me, to you, with your calendar, with your habits, with your refusal to stay the same. Because belief is not a feeling. Belief is a decision to rise before you feel ready, to move before you feel perfect, to show up when everything in your body says stay the same. Belief is the fire beneath your excuses. It's the voice that interrupts your comfort with clarity. It's the moment you stop waiting for momentum and start creating it. And when belief takes root, vision comes alive. You stop dreaming in generalities and start building in specifics. You start seeing your future, not as a wish, but as a result you are creating. You walk into every room already having seen the outcome, not because it's guaranteed, but because it's been decided. And when vision is married to belief, purpose is born. Purpose isn't about finding yourself. It's about remembering yourself. It's not a job title. It's not your passion. It's not some cute sentence you post on social media. Purpose is that invisible contract between your soul and your assignment. It's why you wake up different. It's why you endure more. It's why you refuse to quit, even when no one's watching. Because when you know your purpose, you stop needing permission. You stop needing applause. You stop chasing likes and start chasing legacy. And you don't run from repetition, and you respect it. You respect the mundane. You honor the boring. You fall in love with the grind that no one claps for, because you finally understand repetition is revelation. The world thinks success is found in some big, sexy moment. But you know the truth. Success is found in the discipline to do what you said you would, long after the emotion you said it in has faded. And when that level of discipline becomes your identity, gratitude becomes your power. Not the shallow kind, not write 3 things and move on kind. I mean real gratitude. Gratitude that grounds you. Gratitude that sharpens you. Gratitude that makes you unstoppable. Because now you're not building from lack. You're building from alignment. You're not fighting for self-worth. You're expressing it. You don't need external validation anymore. Because every morning you wake up breathing, you're already winning. And the more grateful you are, the less excuses you tolerate, the less fear you entertain, the less average you accept in your orbit. Because when your spirit is full, you refuse to play small. Because when you stop playing small, the world doesn't just notice, it adjusts. You stop adapting to your environment, and your environment begins adapting to you. That's the power of adaptability. Not as a survival mechanism, but as a strategy of the elite. Because the future doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to the most flexible, the ones who don't break when the plan breaks, the ones who know how to pivot with poise, the ones who've trained their mind to ask, what's the opportunity inside this chaos? And there's always opportunity, always a lesson hiding inside disruption, always a new version of you waiting behind discomfort. But most people never meet that version because they run from the unfamiliar. They flinch at change. They forget you were built to evolve. Adaptability isn't weakness. It's warrior wisdom. It says, I am not attached to method-only mission. It says, I will do whatever it takes to stay in alignment with the life I said I would live. That's when resilience takes root. Not the fake kind that pretends everything is fine. Not the smile through pain, act like your tough version. Real resilience. The kind that looks failure in the face and says, you don't scare me anymore. The kind that sees rejection as redirection. The kind that doesn't need to be loud because it's grounded. Resilience isn't just the ability to bounce back. It's the power to bounce forward, to come out of pain more precise, to come out of storms more skilled, to come out of failure more focused. Because now you don't just survive life. You study it. You become a lifelong learner. Not because you need more certificates, but because you understand, the more I learn, the less I settle. The more I study my patterns, my pain, my path, the more dangerous I become to average. You read because you're building tools. You invest in mentors because you're collapsing time. You reflect Because you're sharpening awareness. And awareness is the beginning of every breakthrough. Because you cannot transform what you are unwilling to observe. And you cannot master what you are afraid to measure. But now you've stopped hiding. Now you look yourself in the mirror eyes, wide open, and say, I am the architect now. No more potential without results. No more knowledge without action. No more living as a student of concepts instead of a practitioner of greatness. You've crossed the threshold. You've exited the cycle. You've stepped into the identity that doesn't need to be reminded anymore. Because the most powerful person in the room is not the one with the most ideas. It's the one with the most execution. And now, that's you. You don't just study wisdom. You embody it. You don't just highlight truth. You become it. You don't just learn anymore. You act, and every action whispers into the future. I will not be the one who almost did. I will not be the one who only knew. I will be the one who built, because I turned my learning into legacy. You are not just informed. You are on fire. You are not just aware. You are awake. You are not just a thinker anymore. You are a mover, a maker, a multiplier of momentum. And the world is now forced to reckon with a person who no longer just knows better. You are the one who does better because you didn't let your learning lead to knowledge. You let it lead to action. And that changes everything. Your time is not infinite. Your energy is not renewable. Your life is not a dress rehearsal. So why do so many spend their one and only chance at this world majoring in minor things? They perfect the unimportant. They obsess over the trivial. They win arguments that don't matter, post content that doesn't count, pursue goals that won't fulfill them and call it a life. But what they've built is a well-decorated distraction. Because when your priorities are out of order, even your best efforts become empty. When your ladder is leaned against the wrong wall, every step up is just another step away from your purpose. And when you spend your life majoring in minor things, you wake up one day surrounded by results that don't resemble who you were born to be. It's a slow death. One excuse at a time. One click at a time. One meaningless task completed with pride while your calling starves in silence. But it doesn't have to be that way, because clarity can cut through the fog like a sword. And one decision can bring it all back into alignment. That decision? To major in what matters. To stop being busy and start being brutal about what actually belongs in your life. To stop counting tasks and start measuring impact. Because the truth is this: your life becomes the sum total of what you give your focus to. Your results don't lie. They reveal your priorities, your bank account, your body, your calendar, your relationships. All of them are mirrors not of your desire, but of your discipline. And discipline means choosing what matters most when everything else is screaming for attention. It means deciding that just because something is urgent doesn't mean it's important. That just because it's trending doesn't mean it's truth. It means cutting ruthlessly, not with guilt, but with honor. Because you don't have time to carry what doesn't move your mission forward. You were not put on this earth to be efficient at the irrelevant. You were not born to master the meaningless. You were born to build something eternal. And that building begins in the mind. Because if you don't master your mindset, you'll major in noise. You'll wake up every day pulled by emotion, seduced by comparison, addicted to distraction, and never even notice that your power was leaking. Mindset isn't about motivation. It's about management. Managing what thoughts stay and which ones go. Managing your attention like it's gold, because it is. Managing your reaction so that your energy is used to build, not to battle imaginary threats. Because your mind is a kingdom. And if you let every thought run free, you invite chaos to rule it. But when you take control, true control, you begin to elevate. You stop wasting time trying to change what you can't control and start transforming what you can to yourself. And from that transformation rises belief. Not borrowed belief, not hype, not feel-good affirmation. Earned belief. The kind that comes from keeping promises to yourself, from doing the work when nobody's watching, from showing up again and again, not for praise, but for purpose. Because belief is the gateway to focus. And once you believe that your life matters, your time becomes sacred. You stop trading hours for validation. You stop saying yes to things that dilute your destiny. You stop apologizing for protecting your energy because you know if it costs your peace, it's too expensive. And with that belief comes clarity. Clarity that pierces through the chaos of modern life and says, this is who I am. This is what I'm building. And I refuse to let the minor things run the major show. Clarity brings order. It's the compass in the storm. The still voice that says, not that this, not them this path, not someday now. And when clarity burns hot enough, vision takes hold. Vision that doesn't care about popularity. Vision that doesn't bow to public opinion. Vision that is so clear, it makes average feel like a threat. Because vision isn't something you find. It's something you fight for. And once you have it, it makes saying no not only easier, it makes it essential. Because now you know every yes to a distraction is a no to your destiny. And you don't have time to waste on what won't outlive you. Because once vision locks in, your life is no longer random. It becomes ritual. You don't drift. You design. You don't dabble. You decide. You don't ask, what do I feel like doing today? You declare, this is who I am, and this is what I do, regardless of how I feel. That's the power of purpose. It eliminates confusion. It wipes out distraction. It gives every minute meaning, even the painful ones. Because purpose doesn't just fuel you when things are working. It anchors you when everything's falling apart. It gives weight to your discipline. And discipline is the great separator. Discipline is the immune system against the infection of mediocrity. It is the daily vow that says, I choose what matters most over what feels best. I choose consistency, not convenience. I choose direction, not dopamine. You cannot major in what matters and be a slave to comfort. You cannot build anything eternal by doing what's easy. Discipline isn't sexy. It's not flashy. It's not meant to be posted. It's meant to be lived. It's quiet. It's boring. It's repetitive. And that's why it works. Because while others chase noise, you choose ritual. While they major in minor things, you master what matters. And when discipline becomes non-negotiable, action becomes automatic. Not emotional, not dramatic, automatic. You act because you've already decided. You move because your movement isn't tied to motivation, it's tied to mission. You stop overthinking. You stop second-guessing. You stop waiting for a sign because you are the sign. And that movement compounds. Those small actions, they become identity. They become your signature. They become the proof that you are not like the rest because you've chosen a different path. And on that path, every action becomes a statement, not to others, still yourself. I will not waste my life on the meaningless. I will not give my attention to what doesn't build me. I will not lose years to busyness while my legacy starves. Because now you live in gratitude. Gratitude for the hard path. Gratitude for the narrow road. Gratitude for the ability to choose again, to wake up, to realign, to return to what matters. Gratitude isn't about being soft, it's about being aware. It's seeing the value in the challenge. It's recognizing that even struggle serves your spirit. Because now you don't resist the pain, you redeem it. You use it, you wield it, you wear it as armor. And when pain comes knocking again, will you meet it with resilience? Not because you're fearless, because you've trained, because you've built a life so aligned, so intentional, so mission-driven that nothing minor can break you. Not opinions, not delays, not even failure. You don't break. You bend forward. You don't shatter. You sharpen. You don't retreat. You recalibrate. Because every time you rise again, you rise richer. Richer in wisdom. Richer in awareness. Richer in character. And all of that wisdom becomes fuel for your learning. Because you're not here to pretend you know everything. You're here to grow through everything. You listen. You adapt. You adjust with humility and move with conviction. Because learners never lose. They evolve. And evolution is the enemy of average. It is the death of distraction. It is the cure to the disease of majoring in the meaningless. And now you know. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being precise. This isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. Then let's finish this with fire in your bones and clarity in your soul. Because this is not just another reminder. This is a reckoning, a sacred confrontation between the life you've been living and the life you were born to lead. No more pretending you don't know the difference. No more playing dumb while your calling starves. No more calling burnout grind and mediocrity balance. You know the truth now. You can feel it. Every time you waste your hours on things that don't matter. Every time you chase the applause instead of the alignment. Every time you settle for being impressive instead of being impactful. You feel that whisper inside you go quiet. And now you're done with that. You're done majoring in minor things. You are done being busy instead of being effective. You are done saying yes to everyone while saying no to your own becoming. This is the moment you cut the cord. This is the moment you raise your standard from productive to powerful. Because now, the only things that get your time are the things that shape your legacy. The only things that get your energy are the things that grow your character. The only things that get your heart are the things that carry your purpose. Everything else, gone. You're not ruthless because you're heartless. You're ruthless because you're awake. You've realized that you only get one shot at this, and you are no longer available for anything less than truth. So you draw the line. You declare with your actions, I will not waste my time decorating distraction. I will not live like my days are unlimited. I will not be remembered as someone who almost became something. From this moment forward, you major in what matters. You move with clarity. You speak with authority. You act with urgency. You're not waiting for alignment. You're choosing it. You're not reacting to life. You're orchestrating it, because the man or woman who majors in the essential, who masters the meaningful, who lives every day in devotion to what is eternal, that person changes the world. So let the world chase noise. Let them obsess over vanity. Let them drown in distraction. You walk the narrow road. You speak the deeper truth. You live the kind of life that cannot be ignored, because your focus became your freedom, and your freedom became your flame. Don't major in minor things. Not now. Not ever again. Because the clock is ticking, and the world is watching, and you have work to do. Don't wish it were easier. That's the whisper of the world's weary, the quiet cry of those who feel crushed beneath the weight of their dreams. The ones who stare at the mountain and say, why is this so high? Instead of asking, what must I become to climb it? Don't wish it were easy, wish you were better. Because life doesn't bend to convenience. It doesn't soften its storms because you're tired. It doesn't lower the bar because you haven't trained. Life gives you the weight. It hands you the resistance. It shows you the wall not to block you, but to build you. And the moment you understand that, You stop asking life to be easy and start asking yourself to be exceptional. That's the dividing line. The average seek comfort. The uncommon seek capacity. The weak pray for lighter loads. The strong forge stronger backs. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to elevate you. Because growth lives on the edge of struggle. Power is buried in pressure. And the life you want, the one that burns in your bones, doesn't respond to hoping, wishing, or waiting. It responds to one thing: who you become in the fire. So the question isn't, why is this so hard? The question is, who must I become to match this? When the road is steep, become steeper. When the night is long, become relentless. When the noise gets loud, become silent inside. You don't rise by removing obstacles. You rise by overcoming them. You don't grow by lowering the standard. You grow by raising yourself. And the moment you stop wishing for easy is the moment you begin to unlock your edge. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming a master of response. Because what happens outside, you will always be unpredictable. But who you are inside, that's under your command. And if you dare, if you're bold enough to trade excuses for execution, blame for belief, comfort for character, everything changes. You stop living at the mercy of life. You stop negotiating with your lower self. You stop waiting for motivation to move. You move anyway. That's where power lives. In motion. In decision. In the disciplined act of becoming better when most would have backed down. It's not about shortcuts. It's not about hacks. It's about one truth that separates the winners from the watchers. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better, and then become it. Because wishing is passive. Becoming is power. Wishing waits for the world to change. Becoming changes you, and when you change, the world has no choice but to shift in response. You've been told to manifest, to visualize, to hope with intensity. But hoping without effort is spiritual sedation. Visualization without transformation is just fantasy. If your dream is real, then prove it with your grind. Back it with becoming. The ones who change the world, the ones who leave echoes behind, when they're gone, they don't wish, they work, not just at the task, but at themselves. Every day, brick by brick, they build the foundation that can hold the weight of greatness. They don't ask for an easier path. They sharpen their steps. They don't curse the resistance. They welcome it because resistance is feedback. Resistance is proof that you're moving towards something meaningful. And the ones who rise are the ones who stop asking life to lighten the load and start asking for stronger shoulders. So what's holding you back? Is it fear? Insecurity? Laziness dressed as self-care? Be honest. Because success doesn't care how you feel. It cares who you are. And who you are is whatever you consistently choose to be. You want more? Be more. You want different? Become different. If you're still blaming the economy, the algorithm, your upbringing, your competition, pause. It was never about them. It was always about you. This world rewards the ones who rise not, the ones who complain about the climb. So climb, bleed if you have to, sweat if you must, cry if it comes, but climb anyway. Because you're not just chasing a result, you're forging a resilient identity. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't shrink in the heat, but who heats the room just by entering it. You're becoming someone who doesn't wait for opportunities, but someone who creates them by sheer force of energy, effort, and elevation. You don't attract success by needing it. You attract it by earning it. Not in the eyes of the world, but in the eyes of the mirror. That's where it all begins. You versus you. You and the discipline you said you'd keep. You and the voice that whispers rest when you haven't earned it. You and the standard no one else will hold you to, but you will anyway. Because you know, wishing doesn't change your life. Work does. And not just working on things, but working on you. So go back to the gym. Go back to the journal. Go back to the quiet. Go back to the grind that doesn't give you dopamine, but gives you identity. Because that's what this game is. Not collecting trophies, not stacking accolades, not appearing successful. It's becoming unshakable. And you can't fake that. You can't post your way into that. You can only earn I-tone choice at a time. And if you're ready, if you're done wishing for easier, then everything changes right now. Then step into the mirror of truth, because everything you seek starts here. Mindset, not a buzzword, not a slogan on a hoodie. Mindset is the operating system of your life, the invisible architecture that determines every decision, every reaction, every limit you honor, and every breakthrough you allow. Your mindset is either your greatest weapon or your silent executioner. It is not your genetics. It is not your circumstances. It is not the opinions of people who haven't done what you're about to do. It is your internal code, and the code can be rewritten, but only if you stop treating your thoughts like facts. Only if you stop allowing fear to dress itself up as logic. Only if you confront every story you've repeated to yourself, the ones that say, "I'm not ready, it's too late. I've already tried," and instead of reciting them, you rewrite them. Because mindset is not just what you believe, it's what you practice believing until it becomes who you are. A mindset of growth, a mindset of resilience, a mindset that says everything is training. Every loss, training. Every delay, training. Every rejection, every redirection, every painful pause, training. And once you live there, once you breathe that, once you embed it into your blood, you become unbreakable. Because no matter what life throws, you absorb it, alchemize it, and evolve. You evolve not because the world gets easier. You evolve because you get stronger. And that evolution gives birth to vision. A vision so clear, so precise, so undeniable, that it begins to pull you forward like gravity. You don't chase anymore, you align. You don't hustle for approval, you walk in assignment. Vision gives your pain a purpose. It gives your time a target. It gives your discipline a direction. Without vision, you drift. With vision, you drive. And not just anywhere forward. Past the critics. Past the old habits. Past the version of yourself that would have quit 6 months ago. Because vision turns work into worship. Discipline into devotion. And from that devotion rises purpose. Purpose isn't a poster. It's not a slogan you slap on your brand. Purpose is fire in your soul. It is remembrance. It's remembering why you started. Why you woke up early when no one was watching. Why you kept going when the crowd went silent. Why you said no to what was good enough. Because you knew you were built for great. Purpose reminds you that your life is not random. Your struggle is not wasted. Your energy is not cheap. You're not here to blend. You're not here to survive. You're here to build something eternal. And that purpose, it doesn't allow shortcuts. It doesn't entertain excuses. It demands discipline daily, not just when it's convenient, not just when it feels good, every damn day. Because discipline is the purest form of self-respect. Discipline says, I value my future more than my feelings. It's brushing past distraction. It's silencing the craving for comfort. It's becoming a master of self, not a prisoner of impulse. Discipline doesn't ask for applause. It asks for consistency. And consistency doesn't come from hype, it comes from identity. You're not doing it for dopamine. You're doing it because this is who you are now. And when that discipline compounds, when you show up through the boredom, through the noise, through the resistance, you don't just create results. You create power. Not the kind that can be stolen or shaken, but the kind that radiates from the core of who you've become. And that power, that's when the world starts to respond differently. Because you're no longer asking, why is this so hard? You're now saying, this is exactly what I needed to become who I was always meant to be. Then let the fire spread. Because now that mindset is locked, vision is carved, purpose is roaring, and discipline has rooted itself in your bones, now comes action. Not the kind that feels good, not the kind that gets applause, the kind that compounds quietly, day after day, unnoticed, until it becomes undeniable. Because movement is the language of momentum. Action is how belief proves itself. You don't believe in a better future unless your feet start walking toward it. You don't believe in transformation unless your habits embody it. You don't believe in yourself unless your behavior reflects it. Before the breakthrough, before the praise, before the world claps. Real power is when you keep showing up with no guarantee except the one you give yourself. I will not fail because I will not stop. Most people are stopped by silence, by setbacks, by lack of validation. But the ones who rise, they're powered by decision. They don't need a sign. They are the sign. And once action becomes identity, once movement becomes non-negotiable, you realize something profound. The goal was never just the finish line. It was who you had to become to cross it. And that who cannot be shaken. Because now you've earned the right to be called resilient. Not because you never fell, but because you kept getting up. Resilience is the scarred soul that says, try me again. It's the tired body that takes one more step. It's the mind that's been through hell and back and still holds peace like a weapon. It's knowing that everything they used to count you out has become your crown. The failures, the losses, the heartbreaks, you wore them all, and you didn't break. You built, and in that building you became something rare. Resilience is the proof that life hit you hard, and you didn't flinch. You adapted, you pivoted, you refused to fold. Because what bends without breaking is what can bend the world. That's adaptability. That's power in its most fluid form. The weak cling to old identities. They refuse to change, and they rust. But the strong evolve. Not because it's easy, but because they're loyal to growth over comfort. Because they don't worship routine, they worship expansion. And so they shift. They rise in uncertainty. They dance with chaos. They meet change with creativity. And life rewards the fluid. Because success doesn't go to the rigid. It goes to the ones who know how to keep their core unchanged while letting everything else transform. And when you live like that fluid, resilient, in motion, and in mission gratitude becomes your gravity. Not because life is easy, but because you have become strong. Gratitude becomes your superpower. Not the surface kind, but the kind that makes you stop mid-struggle and smile. Because even in the storm, you were made for this. The weight didn't crush you, it crafted you. The pressure didn't break you, blessed you. You no longer need easier. You just need to keep becoming better. And when all of that aligns your mind, your mission, your motion, your meaning, you don't just live. You ascend. And everything you were chasing, now it begins chasing you. Then stand tall, because this is the moment you were built for. This is the moment the old self dies quietly. And the new self rises not as a whisper, but as a roar. This is not motivation. This is metamorphosis. This is not hype. This is holy reconstruction. Because you've burned the bridge back to the version of you that begged for things to get easier. That version who flinched at struggle, who cowered before adversity, who waited for the wind to change before lifting the sail. He's gone. She's buried. What remains is a force forged in pressure, shaped by decisions, defined by discipline and breathed into power by the fire of unshakable identity. You no longer ask for lighter burdens. You ask for greater strength. You no longer run from the climb. You dig your hands into the mountain and command it to remember your grip. You no longer seek shortcuts. You become the path. The world will try to distract you with comfort. It will seduce you with convenience. It will whisper lies dressed as logic. But you know that ease is the enemy of excellence. You know that the man on the summit was not dropped there he climbed, blistered and bruised, past the bodies of those who waited for the terrain to flatten. You know that the life you want is not hiding from you. It's waiting on you to rise. So rise. Stand not as someone seeking approval, but as someone who remembers who they are. Stand not as someone praying for the finish line, but as someone possessed by the process. You are the fire now. You are the shift. You are the signal that enough is enough. You are the voice inside that says, I do not need easier. I do not need mercy from the mountain. I do not need life to make room for me. I make room for myself. I become undeniable not through noise, not through luck, but through relentless self-mastery. Because that is the only thing that lasts. Jobs fade. Titles fade. Money fades. Applause fades. But who you become, that is forever. And if you've truly decided, if your soul is done tolerating your old life, then from this moment forward, you will never again ask the world to shrink. You will never again wish for comfort, safety, or escape. You will rise with a spine of steel and a soul on fire and whisper the words that changed everything. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. And then become. Excuses are the chains we forge with our own tongues. Excuses are poverty's favorite song sung loud by the mouths of those who have forgotten their power. They dress themselves in logic, wear the mask of reason, and offer the illusion of safety. But make no mistake, every excuse is a prison. Not of bars and steel, but of mindset, of belief, of identity. Excuses don't protect you, they poison you. They strip you of your agency. They whisper in your ear, you're not ready. You're too tired. You've already tried. And if you believe them long enough, they become your truth. But here's the real truth. No one ever built a legacy by explaining why they couldn't. No empire was born through justification. No greatness was ever forged in the fires of, I would have, but. Excuses are the vocabulary of the defeated, the anthem of the mediocre. They are the lullaby of those who've chosen comfort over calling. And once you start speaking their language, they become your currency. A currency that buys you sympathy, but never freedom. A currency that keeps you poor, poor in vision, poor in courage, poor in discipline, poor in results. Because poverty isn't just in the bank account. Poverty begins in the mind, and the mind that runs on excuses will never generate wealth, inner or outer. You want to know how people stay stuck? How people live year after year, circling the same problems, the same pain, the same paycheck? They explain it. They justify it. They build narratives that sound intelligent, but are rooted in fear. It's not the right time. I don't have the resources. I wasn't born with the talent. These are not facts. These are scripts. Memorized lines passed down from the poor in spirit. And the moment you stop questioning them, the moment you stop challenging the noise, you inherit a life that is not yours. It is a copy of someone else's limitations. But you are here now, which means the flame is still alive, which means something inside you is tired of the language of lack. And now is the time to trade it in. Trade your excuses for execution. Trade your fears for fire. Trade your doubt for discipline. Because every time you silence an excuse and take action anyway, you reclaim territory inside your soul. You declare, I am not powerless. You declare, I do not belong to limitation. You declare, I will no longer narrate a story of why I can't because I am too busy proving that I can. And that declaration, that's where richness begins. That's how wealth is born. Not just in money, but in character, in energy, in mastery. In the kind of person you become when you stop explaining away your destiny and start claiming it. Excuses are the reason people live entire lives inside cages with open doors. Don't let that be you. Because every moment you allow an excuse to lead your life, you make a payment. And that payment, it's your potential. Gone. Wasted. Traded for the cheap comfort of, I'll do it later. But later is not coming. Later is where dreams go to die. And the longer you wait, the heavier the excuse becomes. Until one day, it becomes identity. Until one day, it becomes who you are. And once it owns you, it takes everything with it. Your confidence, your clarity, your drive, your results. You become a shell of who you could have been. But you don't have to live like that. You don't have to be a mouthpiece for mediocrity. You can choose right now to speak a different language. The language of the powerful. The language of the focused. The language of the wealthy in mindset. And that language begins with ownership. Total. Radical. Unapologetic ownership. No more blaming the system. No more blaming the past. No more blaming your parents, your boss, your genes, your environment. Because the moment you give someone else responsibility for your pain, you also hand them control of your power. But the moment you say, this is mine, my life, my responsibility, my choice, that's the moment the chains break. That's the moment the real wealth begins to accumulate just in your wallet, but in your being. And wealth responds to those who own their direction. Because ownership is the seed. And when you plant it in the soil of mindset, everything begins to shift. Mindset isn't about being positive. It's about being powerful. It's not about wishing for the best. It's about preparing for whatever comes and knowing you can bend it to your will. The poor in mind ask, what if it goes wrong? The rich in mind ask, what will I do when it does? And how fast will I rise? Mindset is your fortress. It is the vault where your habits are guarded, your energy is protected, and your future is defended. You don't wait for motivation when your mindset is strong, you move. Because movement is your muscle memory. The difference between success and stagnation is not Luckett's language. And when your internal language is coded in excuses, every external result suffers. But when your language shifts to ownership, everything responds. Because the universe doesn't speak emotion. It doesn't speak intention. It speaks execution. It listens to frequency. And the frequency of belief, of discipline, of purpose, it moves worlds. So when your mindset sharpens, belief becomes the fire inside. Not belief in ideas, not belief in motivation, belief in yourself. And that belief is forged, not found. It is built in silence, in the dark, when no one is watching, when no one claps. It is built when you show up anyway, when you do the thing you said you would, especially when it's hard. Belief is the result of self-trust, and self-trust is the real wealth, because the world doesn't reward who you pretend to be. It rewards who you consistently are. And if you consistently show up weak, scared, or scattered, don't be shocked when life reflects that back to you. But if you show up clear, if you show up with clarity that burns, you stop chasing. You start attracting, because clarity is a magnet. It makes excuses irrelevant. You don't say, I don't feel like it. You say, feelings don't vote anymore. My future does. You don't ask, is this hard? You ask, is this aligned? You don't seek comfort. You seek alignment. And that alignment gives birth to vision. A vision so clear it makes quitting feel like betrayal. A vision so alive you can taste it in the back of your throat when you wake up. Vision isn't a dream, it's a demand. It calls something out of you that fear cannot touch. It makes excuses sound weak in your ears. You no longer have time for maybe. You no longer have space for someday. You are done waiting. You're building. You're becoming. You're moving with purpose now. And purpose doesn't care about how you feel today. It cares about who you said you would be when you were on your knees, begging for another chance. That's purpose. Purpose remembers. It remembers the nights you said, never again. It remembers the promises you whispered when no one was listening. And now it's holding you to them. Because excuses want release, but purpose demands resolve. And once purpose lives in you, discipline becomes sacred. Discipline becomes your highest expression of self-love. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop arguing with excuses. You stop asking for motivation. You show up, and that showing up is the knife that cuts the cord from poverty. Not just financial poverty, but mental, emotional, spiritual lack. Because you are done living small. You are done speaking the language of the poor. Now you speak in action. You speak in standards. You speak in results. And the world listens. Because now you speak in behavior. And behavior is the loudest belief system. It's not what you say in your quiet moments, it's what you repeat in your public ones. It's not what you feel in bursts, it's what you build in patterns. Action is identity in motion. So if your actions are scattered, your identity is unsure. If your actions are delayed, your belief is weak. If your actions are excuses dressed in logic, then you are not living, you are stalling. But when your actions become disciplined, when your days become precise, when your habits mirror your hunger, then you don't just make progress. You become unstoppable. Because there's something the world cannot deny the man or woman who refuses to stop. Not because they're gifted, not because they're lucky, because they made the decision to move forward even when everything screamed, stay. And that movement is not random. It's adaptable. Because now you no longer resist change, you ride it. You no longer pray for certainty. You command clarity inside chaos. You no longer fold under pressure. You flex with it. Adaptability is wealth. Not the wealth that shines. The wealth that survives. The wealth that lasts. Because the poor in mindset, they break at the first sign of change. But the rich in spirit, they bend. They morph. They reinvent, not because they're unshaken, but because they're unbreakable. And that unbreakable spirit, that's called resilience. It's not bounce back. It's bounce forward. It's using the fall to catapult your rise. It's using the wound to sharpen your weapon. It's using the silence to deepen your roots. Because resilience isn't built in comfort, it's built in crisis. It's built when your excuses are screaming and you tell them, you don't speak for me anymore. It's built when your body is tired, your mind is foggy, and your heart is aching, but you still show up. Not because it's easy, because it's required. Because regret is no longer welcome here. Because you've seen what happens when you live in excuses. You felt what it's like to watch others rise while you explain your limits. You've tasted what it means to know you're capable of more and still choose less. And you are done. Done with smallness. Done with softness. Done with maybe someday. Now you rise. And you rise as a learner. Because you know growth is the only guarantee of freedom. And the moment you stop learning, you start decaying. So you feed your mind like a warrior sharpens their sword. You devour truth. You devour challenge. You devour discomfort. You no longer fear being wrong because being wrong means you're still becoming. You no longer need to be the smartest. You just need to be the one who never stops evolving. Because while the poor argue, the powerful adapt. While the stuck defend their excuses, the uncommon study their execution. And now, so do you. Because you're not here to coast. You're not here to settle. You're not here to fit in with the tired, tame, and terrified. You are here to build, to become, to burn through the limits of your past and give birth to someone the world cannot ignore. Then stand still for just a moment. Let it all sink in. Let the excuses, the lies, the dead weight of average fall off you like old skin. Because this is the moment it all changes. Not because something around you shifted, but because you did. This is the moment you stop negotiating with your lesser self. This is the moment you bury the voice that said, you can't, with the roar of watch me. This is the moment the word someday burns into now. Because now you've remembered who you are. You are not here to explain why you couldn't. You are not here to list the reasons it was hard. You are not here to water down your potential to make the average feel safe. You are here to rise. You are here to become the exception. You are here to build a life so loud with evidence that excuses no longer dare to speak your name. So what's the next excuse? That you're too late? Time doesn't control the one who owns it. That you're too tired? Fatigue bows before purpose. That you've already failed? Then you're one of the lucky ones. Because pain is the only shortcut that matters. You are not your mistakes. You are the lesson pulled from the fire. You are not your past. You are the pattern breaker. You are not your circumstance. You are the creator of new reality. But only if you choose it. Only if you decide that today is the last day you speak the language of the poor. No more I wish. No more I'll try. No more maybe one day. From now on, you say, I will. You say, watch me. You say, this life bends to my will because I no longer bow to mine. Because this is your time. Not when it's easier, not when it's perfect. Now is the only time that ever mattered. Now is the only door that's real. Now is the only moment that separates you from the life you were given and the life you create. So what will it be? Another year of reasons? Another month of stories? Another day of playing small? Or will you rise right now and declare with your entire being, excuses are the language of the poor, and I no longer speak that dialect. From now on, I speak results. I speak responsibility. I speak greatness because I am done justifying mediocrity and I have work to do. The world will pay you just enough to forget who you are. It will hand you a system, a syllabus, a sequence, and say, follow this, get a degree, learn the rules, get a job, stay in line. And for most, it works. Not because it fulfills them, but because it numbs them. Because formal education teaches you how to survive, but it rarely teaches you how to be free. It teaches you how to pass tests, not how to build wealth, how to memorize facts, not how to think critically, how to fill in blanks, not how to ask the questions that change your life. And so we graduate. We wear the robes. We frame the paper. And we walk out into the world trained to earn a living, but completely untrained to create a life. And that's where the great divide begins. Because the moment you realize your diploma is not your destiny, you stand at a crossroads. Do you stay loyal to the system that gave you the minimum? Or do you educate yourself into your own liberation? Because here's the truth. No one taught us in school. The curriculum that makes you wealthy was never in the classroom. It's in the pages no one assigned. It's in the podcasts no one graded. It's in the questions that made you uncomfortable. It's in the repetition no one clapped for. Formal education makes you a living. Self-education makes you a fortune. Not just a financial fortune, a fortune in time, a fortune in freedom, a fortune in who you become. Because when you educate yourself, you don't just learn what to do. You learn how to think, how to unlearn, how to challenge, how to question the system that taught you to settle. Self-education is rebellion. It's responsibility. It's renaissance. It's when you stop waiting for the world to invest in you and you start investing in yourself. Not once, daily. You study your pain. You study your patterns. You study wealth, psychology, communication, leadership, influence, energy, emotion, discipline, vision, purpose. Not because someone told you to, because you decided to. Because you finally realized that the most expensive thing in the world is an untrained mind. A mind trained only to obey, but not to innovate. A mind trained to memorize, but not to monetize. Because let's be honest, most of what made you valuable in school won't make you valuable in life. School rewarded answers, but life rewards adaptation. School praised perfection, but life multiplies resilience. School measured intelligence by how well you repeated, but life multiplies the one who creates. And creation only comes from self-education, because the more you learn, The more you earn, not just money, you earn options. You earn leverage. You earn peace. Because while the world waits for approval, you've trained yourself to move with authority. And when you move like that, the game changes. Because now, you're not just playing it, you're designing it. Because once you've tasted that power, once you've seen what your life starts to become, when you educate yourself with purpose, you'll never go back. You'll never again wait for permission to grow. You'll never again outsource your potential to a system that was never built for your greatness. Because now, you've discovered something far more valuable than grades or gold. You've discovered your mindset. And mindset isn't something they teach in school. It's something you build in purpose. Because self-education begins where school ends. When you realize your life is being built from the inside out, your beliefs, your focus, your thoughts, your rituals, this is where wealth is created. Not on paper, but in your philosophy. Mindset is what determines whether you see challenges as roadblocks or as rehearsal for your next level. It decides whether you see problems as punishment or as a divine curriculum for the person you're becoming. And once your mindset is rewired, your belief system starts to shift. Not belief in theory, belief in identity. You stop saying things like, I'm not good with money. I'm not a leader. I'm just not wired like that. You delete those programs and you install new ones. I am the kind of person who learns what I don't know. I am the kind of person who takes full responsibility. I am the kind of person who builds what they need to become. Because your belief system, it is the foundation of your entire reality. Your income, your influence, your intimacy. It all rises or falls to the level of your internal philosophy. And now that you've begun educating yourself, you're writing a new code. And that code breeds clarity. Because clarity is the most underrated currency in the world. You can have the talent, the resources, the time. But if you lack clarity, you will build a life that looks good to everyone, except you. Clarity is the cutting edge. It is what allows you to slice away what's urgent, to protect what's essential. It lets you delete distractions without apology. It lets you say no without guilt. It lets you stop chasing noise and start building legacy. Clarity makes you powerful because it makes you precise. And when clarity fuses with belief, a vision is born. Not a fantasy, not a motivational high. A vision, a picture of the life you were meant to live. A version of you that's unchained, unboxed, undeniable. You see it in detail. You feel it in your gut. And now you know, I'm not here to survive. I'm here to create. And that creation begins with discipline. Not the discipline they drilled into you in school, the kind that's built on fear, punishment, pressure. No, this is devotional discipline. Discipline born out of love for your future self. Discipline fueled by alignment, not anxiety. Discipline that says, I honor what I said I'd do, not because I'm trying to impress anyone, because it's who I am now. And when that discipline becomes daily, when it becomes sacred, your life becomes unrecognizable. Because once discipline becomes your baseline, action becomes inevitable. You stop overthinking. You stop second guessing. You stop rehearsing failure before you've even begun. You move, not because the stars align, but because your decisions are aligned. This is what self-education does. It removes the need for motivation. It replaces hype with habit. It replaces emotion with execution. And in that execution, you start building evidence. Evidence that you are becoming who you said you'd be. Evidence that your words are no longer hollow. Evidence that your future is no longer a fantasy. It's under construction. And the more you act, the more your world shifts. Not just what you do, but what you see. You begin to notice opportunities others miss because you've trained your mind to look for possibility, not permission. You stop chasing validation because your results now speak louder than anyone's praise. You stop fearing failure because you understand the only thing worse than failing is never evolving. And that's why action must be fueled by gratitude, not the surface level kind, not the write 3 things down kind. I mean soul level gratitude, the kind that brings you to your knees with realization. I get to build this life. I get to struggle for something that matters. I get to wake up every day and design my own reality. Gratitude is the amplifier. It doesn't just make life feel better. It makes your energy more powerful. It makes you unstoppable in the face of adversity. Because now you don't run from hard. You rise inside of it. And that's where adaptability comes in. The educated mind is not rigid. It's fluid. It doesn't cling to the way it's always been. It updates. When the plan breaks, you don't panic. You pivot. When life throws a curve, you don't crumble. You calibrate. Adaptability is the child of clarity. When your vision is clear, the method becomes flexible, but the mission remains non-negotiable. And as you adapt, you grow resilient. Because true education doesn't eliminate resistance. It teaches you how to leverage it. You stop seeing problems as signs to quit. You see them as reps. Every challenge builds capacity. Every setback forges character. Every detour develops depth. Resilience is no longer a trait. It's your default setting, because now you've rewired your identity. Now you're not someone who tries to change. You're someone who learns their way through transformation, because self-education never ends. You're a student forever, not in the way school taught you, but in the way life requires. You don't read to feel smart. You read to become strategic. You don't study to pass tests. You study to build tools. You don't chase certificates. You chase clarity, because you now understand the most valuable degree you'll ever earn is the one you give yourself. A degree in commitment, in self-awareness, in financial intelligence, in emotional regulation, in decision-making, communication, conviction, leadership, and legacy. You didn't get that from the system. You earned it in silence. You built it in the dark. You forged it through repetition. And now, you wear it in how you live. And that brings us here to the climax, to the moment where everything changes. Because this is the moment when everything before you, every chapter, every habit, every limitation, either becomes your excuse or your evidence. This is the line, the threshold, where the average turn back, where the uncertain wait, where the untrained mind looks for rescue. But not you, because now you know your freedom is not in the hands of the system that raised you. Your freedom is in the depth of your self-education. It's in how often you showed up to learn what no one forced you to study. It's in the hours you spent mastering what others called unnecessary. It's in the pages no one assigned, the mentors no one introduced you to, the sacrifices no one clapped for. This is what separates those who live a life by default from those who live a life by design. Because wealth isn't luck. Clarity isn't magic. Discipline isn't talent. All of it, every ounce, is a product of education you chose for yourself. The courses you took in silence, the books you devoured in solitude, the routines you built when your old self begged for distraction, the beliefs you rewrote when it would have been easier to just stay the same. And now you've crossed over, not to a perfect life, to a powerful one. A life that you built not with inheritance or connections, but with decision, with devotion, with a hunger to become. Because that's what this was all about. Not becoming smarter, not becoming louder, becoming stronger, becoming wiser, becoming undeniable. And now, you don't just walk into rooms with confidence. You walk in with evidence. Evidence of work done, of identity built, of habits formed in fire, of a mind so tuned, so trained, so transformed that the old life can no longer recognize you. You're not just educated anymore. You're armed. Armed with clarity. Armed with vision. Armed with self-belief so deep that failure is no longer your fear, it's your fuel. So when they ask how you did it, how you broke free, how you rose from average, how you created wealth in more than just money, you won't point to a degree. You won't show them a certificate. You'll say one sentence. I taught myself how to win, and that is why formal education made me a living. But self-education made me a fortune.